Morning, everybody. I'm a little bit late getting started here, but kind of lost track of time because I was trying to get a little prep work done. We need music. And today I think we're going to go with. Which is the one I'm looking for? Uh, do, 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 do. There's the one we want. Okay. Let's tuck that out of the way. Let's make sure it's playing. It is. Good. Hopefully I can be heard over it. And we can get started. World Anvil is now hosting me. Thank you, World Anvil. I assume that means Second Hand is hiding out there someplace. Or is this just an auto host? I know Isaac will be finishing up in a few minutes and should be raiding. And with any luck, I'll actually make it through this whole stream without my system collapsing. Um, quick report on the parts. They're on their way. I have a I have my input devices and my output devices. All I need is all the stuff in the middle to show up, and we'll be all set. So with any luck, by this time next week, I will be a very, very happy camper on a whole brand new system. And you will all be very happy campers because you won't be putting up with the technical glitches that have been plaguing this channel since about 2 weeks ago, when Windows apparently did something that made memory a much more valuable commodity. So, anyway, today I'm starting out with a few interesting bits. I've been playing with stats and stat blocks and sheets. And here's secondhand. Oh, it's a low mic day again today. I wonder if that's just because I'm talking quietly. If not, I'll see what I can do to boost things. I can't boost my mic any higher, but I can lower the music if that will help. So let me do that. Let me just save what I'm doing here, and let me pop down to here, and let's. Oh, I know what part of the problem might be too. Hold on. Forgot to do this. I'm on the wrong mic right now, I think. How's that now? That's much better, isn't it? Yes, it is. Because now I'm on the correct mic. Let's bring up my windows again. Is that better? Secondhand? I think I was tapping off the wrong mic, and the other mic is a little farther away, and tends not to have the same settings. So hopefully I'm in better shape now, and don't have to restart everything. I think I should be fine now. I don't know. I haven't touched the gain settings on anything. And as you can see, they're maxed out. It's maxed out here. Let me make sure I haven't done anything silly. Is that better? Is that any better? Is this any better? This is all my headphones. I'm not sure what else I can do with the mic. At least not right now. I think my input levels are as high as they can get. Let me make sure that I'm not missing something. Yeah, that's not going to help me. Oh, I mean, that's right. Yeah. I don't want that one. I want this one. We'll do one more check on the mic levels and see if we can fix them. Oh, too many moving parts. Just too many moving parts as well. Oh, I see I have been raided. Welcome, raiders. Trying to do a quick check here to get my make sure my mic levels are up as high as they can possibly be. And as soon as I get that done, we'll get started for the day. Let's see, who do we have here? We have Isaac. Thank you for the raid. Walking Dead lover. Tillers. Actually, Isaac, I appreciate the delay because I've been, I kind of got into the middle of a few things and lost track of time myself. So I'm just finishing getting set up. So why isn't this popping up? Isn't my audio manager coming up? Yeah, these are the minor technical difficulties. I mean, I can talk a little louder. It'll just rip my throat out a little faster. And that should take care of the problems, but I just want to do one more quick check and make sure that I have my mic gains as high as they can possibly be all the way through the system. There's just so many different places where you can tone things down. I'm not sure why that's not coming up. I'm not going to waste any more time on it. So let's get started. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Hopefully I'm talking loud enough. What I've started working on is putting together the information that new players to my world would use to help them design and build their characters. And I'm a person who prefers roll with an E play as opposed to roll with an L play. Although I recognize that both types exist. And what I would like to do in my um, publications is kind of focus on um, the narrative attributes of what it means to be a dwarf character or an elf character, and then what it means to be one of the sub-heritages that belong to the dwarves or elves or whoever it is. And actually focus on basically the stuff that would go into a backstory, to allow a player to pick, um, without worrying about stats per se, at least not up front, to be able to decide, yeah, this is the kind of character I want to play. All right, and then the stats are there, but they're kind of on the side. I'm trying to focus on both. So what I've done, and I'm still kind of making a few adjustments. Yes, I am playing with stat blocks and sheets, and just to show you what I've done so far. This is the stat block for a race in the game. Now again, I'm using essentially Pathfinder 2 rules. They call it an ancestry now instead of a race. Everybody I know still calls it a race, so I'm probably going to just go with the word race. It's fewer characters. It fits better in certain places on character sheets and things. So when I refer to race, I'm referring to dwarf versus elf versus human, etc. So what I have here is these are the actual game stats that would come with playing a certain character, and I just kind of finished cleaning this up. I still have to do some work on the languages, and apparently I don't understand how list works, because I'm not getting anything, and I can't seem to be able to put anything into the language list. So until I figure out how that works, um, I'll leave this alone, and I'll get back to that. I can fix that at some point in the future. But I just want to show everybody real quick what I'm doing, and then I want to get started on getting a couple of the other ones done. I've kind of gone through setting up dwarves. So again, this is the stat block or this the sheet definition. All right, and that comes from here, and I actually have two. I have one that defines the variables that need to be put in place for the narrative portions, and then one for the numerics. So that's all there. And then if I come across to my stat blocks, we'll see that I have created a couple already. All right, I've created the dwarf, and again, this is the narrative portion, and this is the descriptive portion. I need to rebuild this for dwarves, so I'm going to probably start off by doing that, and that's because I just made a change, changed the field name, and that kind of made things go away in here. So I wonder if I can just do this, what would happen? Oh, that might just fix it. If I give that hit points, everything else is here. Like I said, the languages aren't showing up, and the senses aren't showing up, and they're set up as lists, and I'm not quite sure why, but I'll deal with that later. I'm not going to spend this session troubleshooting. But I will put the hit points back in, and I will save those. And then if we want to see what that looks like, we can come over here and do a real quick look and see what the stats look like. The hit points aren't showing up. I know why they're not showing up though, because it's because I changed the sheet out from under that stat block. So I think if I actually rebuild this stat block real quick, it should be fine. So let's do that. Let's come back into stat blocks. I'm going to delete the one called dwarf stats. And then I'm going to create another one called dwarf stats. And the first thing I need to do is, when I first set up my world, I set it up as Pathfinder 2e, but the stat blocks I'm building are homebrew. So in order to find them in the drop-down list to create a new one, I need to go to all my stat blocks and not just stat blocks in my world. Now the interesting thing is I can still bring it into my world, as we'll see in a second. This is the race stats. I'm going to create a new sheet, and we're going to call it dwarf. Ability boosts are Constitution. Look at that, there they are. You might think I'd done this before. Charisma is that. This is 10. Oh, I hate when it does that. The traits I care about now are humanoid, and there they are. Humanoid and dwarf. I'm going to put these in just in case. Common and dwarvish. Sooner or later I'll get them to actually show up. Size is medium. Speed is 25 feet. And they have dark vision. So I've saved that. Now if I come in here and look at my stat blocks again, and I view the dwarf character sheet, we'll see that I still don't have hit points. Why is that? I am going to have to go back and fix this now, aren't I? Studio, sheets and blocks. This is what happens when you try to be a little fancy. By default, when you create these sheets, the first thing you do is you go in and you lay out all of these, basically all of the fields that you're going to need to set up, and then you can leave it at that, or you can try to get a little fancy, which I did. And I think it's time I actually did this right. Oh, I know what the problem is. But I'm going to copy this whole... This is actually the HTML that's going to drive what the sheet looks like. And we're going to pop over into Notepad++. We're going to create a new HTML file. Actually, it's a twig file, but HTML will do, at least for now. Where is it? I know it's there someplace. There it is. And we're going to call this race stat block. And we're going to paste all of that text in here. The nice thing is it's going to help me now format it all, and that's exactly the problem. It's not ancestry race hit points anymore, it's what do I call it now? Just hit points. It, by the way, this screen it builds for you the default HTML, the simple default HTML with all of the structures that you need to play around with, and it puts them down here in this section called boilerplate. What you then do, or what you then can do, is you take this and you copy it up into the section where it actually governs what the display is. And you can move stuff around and you can play games with it, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I have changed the instead of it listing everything just vertically, I've set it up so that 6 of these things actually show up in pairs side by side in a table. While I'm here, I can fix my indentations. Let's do that, just to make this all nice and pretty. This will take a few seconds, but it's got to be done. And there's my table row. New table row. To be over one more anyway. And that ends my table row. And then we have another row. Sure, this is exciting to watch, but too bad. What I should do is bring up my chat window so I can at least see who's talking. Good morning, Moonflower. What else did I miss here? Tillers, you ran a long stream. Songbird, good morning. Anazel, you are also doing the same kind of thing at the moment. Excellent. Hopefully something I do will prove helpful, and or hopefully something I fail at you can help with. So that's what these are all about, these streams, right? Okay, so those are all done nice. Now that I've done that, I can actually bring every one of these in one. There we go. Okay. And then the last two pieces are the languages and the special senses, and those are fine the way they were. You just bring the ifs in there, and the div is closed. Okay, so all of this is clean now. Now I can copy this, and I can come back to here, and I can just paste it in over the top. And there's all my brand new nice clean HTML code. And if I save the changes, and then we come back and take a look at our stat blocks and view the dwarf character stats. There we go. Now we can see my hit points, we can see my speed, the ability boosts and flaws are there. Again, the language and special senses aren't showing up. I will deal with that in the future. Now this is just a quick view of it. What I'm actually aiming for though is I have imported this stat block and into an article and allowed that article to apply more CSS to it to clean it up. So what it's really going to look like is this. And actually what we're looking at here, if I view this, is the result of both the it's a result of 3 bits of customization. I've also created an article template based on the species template to give me the headers that I want to put in here. And then if we come down here, I need to get the new link for the stat block. That's right. Articles, stat blocks. No, I didn't want that. I want stat blocks. I need to get the new clipboard entry. Then I need to come back over here and open up the article and switch over to sections and switch over to sections. And put that block there where it belongs. And save that. And now we see down at the bottom, lo and behold, just the way I want to see it. Here's the characters. Here's the stats for a dwarf. Alright, and we have the traits that I define, the hit points, the size, the speed, the ability boosts and flaws. And again, one of these days I'll figure out what's going on with languages and special senses, but they will appear here too. So this is how I'm going to be using the stat block. You did notice I had another character stat block. I was toying with the idea of doing stat blocks for all this narrative stuff, and then I realized that was just kind of silly. That's what an article was for. So I then jumped over and, as I said, I created a template, and we can take a quick look at that now. Again, if I come over to Studios and look at article templates, we'll see that I have an ancestry race template that's based on species. And what I've done is just basically all you do when you're creating these custom templates is you get to throw in all the BB code you want up in the vignette area and in the sidebar areas. So you'll see I've set up, the sections that I'm going to want to, fill out. A few in the sidebar as well. I don't know that I can't put anything here until I actually bring it over and use it. So this is the template, and I haven't changed anything, so I'm not going to. And now if I come over to dashboard, we see that up on top of the list of standard ones, I have my ancestry race. I'll have to come up, I can actually put a different icon here if I want. One of these days I might get around to doing that. And if we want to create a new one, and let's go ahead and do that. All I have to do, like any other article, is click on that, and lo and behold, everything comes in pre-populated. Now, because it's based on the species template, all of the additional species stuff is still here and available to me. I do not plan on using most of this. In fact, the only thing for the information I want to put here, the only bits that I'm going to use are the lifespan, height, weight, and I think that's it. I don't think there was anything else. A lot of this stuff is going to get included as information, but it's going to get included up here. So how did I name the first one? Who remembers? It was the dwarves, right? So this is the elves. Was it the elves or elves? Now I'm forgetting. Oh, let's find out. It was the dwarves. Okay. Now you'll notice I have an old article called The Elves. Now here's the other beautiful thing about it. You'll notice that it... oh no, I did set up an elves. How did I set up an elves? Oh, it saved that, didn't it? Okay, well that's the one I'm going to use. If you notice, it says it's an ancestry race template, just like these other ones would have the normal template. But the beauty of this is because it comes off of the species template, if I come down here and do a browse article by type and select species, my dwarves and elves still show up, even though I used a custom template. Right, and that's because the custom template is laid on top of the existing template. And as a result, it knows both. Let me do a quick catch up on stream. Let's see, Moonflower, your Tuesday is going all right, I guess. Woke up late. Need to go and watch the marching VOD from this morning. Yeah, you can't do that. Well, I guess you can on Twitch. Tillers, you built the whole sheet. I saw the result of the sheet in Siobhan's. You brought it over to Siobhan's stream and had her look at it. That looks pretty good. One of these days, I'm gonna have to get into actually doing that, dealing with character sheets. For now, I'm just worried about, like I said, the stat block stuff that I can include in articles. I'm taking things one bit at a time. So, yeah, BattleTech sheet. It looked pretty good. And let's see. Oh, thank you, Delian. Delian's my man. He's looking out for me. Okay, looks like I'm caught up on chat, so that's good. So anyway, here, like I said, here we are, and so the custom templates kind of gives you the benefit of playing the best of both worlds. And I'm going to have to bring up one more thing, and this is going to be what kills my stream, I'll bet. We'll see, but I got to do it. I do want to bring up, just for my own reference, the player handbook from Pathfinder 2. Because again, I am customizing the races and classes, and not so much the classes, but the races. But I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm not too far afield or too far astray from the default, because I do want people to be able to take the Cartyrion world and play Pathfinder 2 in that world. Using Pathfinder 2 characters, possibly with and that's definitely doable. Like for example, when it comes, the characters themselves are essentially the same as defined. I just have to write my own versions of everything so that I'm not literally copy and pasting every little bit. Although most of this stuff is available, even the character description stuff is available in the SRD for Pathfinder 2. So it's not so much a copyright concern that I have as much as a desire to just add the Cartyrion flavor to things. But people could ignore that and use out of the core rulebook characters. Um, so anyway, there's my dwarf. We did the dwarf. I'm not dealing with all that yet. Now we're dealing with elves. And I do need a few bits of information from here. Lately, basically what I've been doing is kind of copying. I'll copy this block in and then I'll translate it, shall we say. Oh, that's a good section. Oh, that's a section I forgot to put in. I'll need to go back and modify the template. Let me do that now while I'm thinking of it, because I will forget otherwise. If you notice what I did put in now I'm going to have to go in and manually fix the two that I did already, but if I go back to Studio and Article Templates and Ancestry Race, and I did that again. Article Templates. Anybody else have this problem? The screen first shows up and the things are in one order, and you jump ahead and you click the edit button, and while you're doing that, it finishes redrawing and they come up in the other order, so now you end up with the wrong template that you've opened. Does that happen to anybody else? I keep putting my chat away. I have to figure out how to keep that on top. I see a hail hydrate. Thank you, Coffee. Coffee, you're supposed to make me caffeinate. What I did put in already is I have attitudes toward... Oh, I forgot to put something else in here already. I thought I did that already. I must not have forgotten to save it, or must not have remembered to save it. H2... what I'm doing here is basically providing, hopefully providing information that will help players figure out, quote unquote, how they're supposed to act, at least initially. I mean, these things are initial guidelines, and again, I am trying to keep the new player in mind, who may not really, have a long history of playing dwarves, for example, and knowing that this is how they behave and so forth. And in some cases, Cartyrion has introduced a few tweaks, so I want to get those in. But the other thing I need to put in here is that's right, I changed this to say this. Folk is just my general term for all of the sentient player character races. It is important to know what other people are going to think of you, as well as knowing what you think of them. And then the attitude toward adventuring party, that's an important one, especially, again, if you're starting with first level characters, um, and you have a dwarf and an elf and a goblin. Um, they're not all going to just walk into the pub, blind and look around and say, "Oh, they look friendly. I'm going to go join them." There should be a little tension sometimes at the beginning, but I don't want to. But I want to make it clear that that's tension that can go away, and eventually it should grow into something much more important. Oh, Tillers, I see. What I saw was the D&D, yeah, 3.5 sheet. Yeah, okay, so we didn't see the BattleTech sheet. I've never played BattleTech much, but it would be interesting just to see. Um, BattleTech is already the next one. I tell you what, if you pop a link of the BattleTech sheet in, I'll pop it up and we can look through it because I'm curious. The more of these I see, the more ideas I'll get. Because eventually, like I said, I'm going to have to deal with setting up a Cartyrion specific sheet, which will basically clone the Pathfinder 2 sheet. I will definitely pick up the Pathfinder 2 sheet and go from there. Oh, it's up in the chat already. There it is. Okay. Let's see what Tillers did today. Classic BattleTech RPG. Okay, so you don't have a lot. Is there going to be more decoration just out of curiosity, or is this you're just getting started? And, there's no sense in doing all the decoration until you have the main chunks in, which I would agree with. Okay, so name Testy McBattleteckerson. I like it. Age, affiliation. Okay, so you got basic information there. Traits. Making puns. Is that a real trait in the game, or is that just filler for the sheet? Because if that's a real trait in the game, I'm definitely going to have to look into this game. Uh, okay, there's the various attributes and modifiers. Weapons, armor, wounds and fatigue. If there's anybody out there that knows BattleTech um, and has any questions about anything that might be missing, I cannot offer any assistance in that regard. A question about the notes field. I mean, right now it's a single line. Is that a field that can expand if you add to it, or is that going to scroll? Or I'm just curious, or is that just a placeholder section itself right now? Likewise, equipment, because I'm sure eventually those two sections are going to need to get fairly heavily populated. So are they just there now for placeholders as well, or are they going to end up as different tabs? I know we were talking about Dimmy still needs to do some sort of magic to make tabs happen on these character sheets. But other than that, looks pretty good. It's got fields. Fatigue 7. Is that supposed to be not in the same format as the rest of these things, or should that actually be a 7 over here on the table? Yeah, again, I don't know what the textbook character sheets look like and how the stats are managed. So I'm just asking because it looks a little different. You did go through the trouble of putting a colon in there on the fatigue, so I'm guessing this is intentional. But it looks pretty good. It looks like a day's work. So, so back to here. Okay, I have fixed the template. I have saved the changes. Pardon me. Allergies the last couple of days. I know a lot of people have been complaining as well. I don't know whether it's the ragwort or the ragweed rather, or there's a few other things that are up and spewing these days. Okay, so that's done. The next thing I want to do is come back in here, and before I even start on my elf article, I'm going to delete it. Before I forget, I'm going to come in here and include a this too. Like I said, I'm not gonna recreate this one from scratch. I'm just kind of adding in the sections that I know I just put in. Back and deal with that later. I just want to do that before I forget I have to do it. And then we'll come back to the dashboard and create the elves. And we're going to have an opportunity for a sprint here in a second. So anybody who wants to do some sprinting, get yourself ready, because I'm going to start a 10-minute timer and start bouncing around all over the sheet, filling in bits and pieces of it. So everybody that's ready, let me get my timer up. And anybody that's ready to sprint, we're going to start for 10 minutes in 3, 2, 1, go. And as I said, I am probably going to jump over here. Oh, it did weird things, okay. And start importing bits and pieces of this that I will then clean up. Again, a lot of this stuff is not going to stay. let's get all this chunk in here, and then we'll start trimming it down. And again, I'm just bringing this in so that I have it handy to read. I'm not going to be plagiarizing it, as you'll see. I'm going to kind of go through it all and make it my own. The other thing I'm going to jump over and do, even though it's in the middle of the sprint, I'm not counting words for myself today. I am going to save that. I'm going to jump into stat blocks. I started to do this before. I'm going to create a new stat block using the character stats. And we're going to create something called elf. And their ability boosts are in dex and intelligence. And a free one, and their flaw is in constitution. They get 6 base hit points. Humanoid and elf. Common, elven, and then others. Okay. And there is a list. And that made that go away again. I haven't decided if I'm going to have different languages in different regions. I'm leaning not to, although there might be dialects of common. And that's simply because in my years of experience, once you start messing with languages, it's good to have, you know, different types of creatures have different languages, you know, so that, you know, if you don't understand Orcish, you don't know what the Orc commander is yelling to his troops. But it gets clunky in game terms if you're fighting other humans. And now I realize in the real world, if you were a German traveling through Spain and couldn't speak Spanish and got stopped by a highwayman, you wouldn't understand the instructions. But again, that's supposed to be what common is for. So I have always in the past shied away from regional languages, especially among humans. You know, even though you have different nations, you know, and certainly they would certainly develop their own speech patterns and idiom and accent, or, you know, or whatever you want to call it. But I personally don't get into the heavy, you know, oh, you're not speaking the language of the country. With an existing setting, Ravnik, how much of the current lore would you put in? Would I only do, well, in my case, DM, Pathfinder 2 comes with, if you buy the player handbook, it comes with its own setting called Galarian. The setting is not covered under the SRD, you know, under the open gaming license. All the rules are, all of the information about the player characters and the feats and the spells and all of that is covered under the SRD. So all of that is fair game for me. But the actual setting and the deities that belong in that setting are not. So at the base level, what my world is going to provide is an alternative to Galarian. I will define, all my own deities, but I have to define them in terms that will work with the game mechanic. I will define my own physical settings. That's easy, because there's really nothing game mechanic about geography and history. Um, so in my case, I mean, I'm creating a setting from scratch. It's the rules, and the part that I'm doing today is kind of a crossover of that. This is more world specific than it is rule specific. The text stuff that I'm doing, because what I'm really defining is what are elves in my world. Now the stat block stuff, all right, it comes right out of the book, and that's because again mechanically, I need an elf to be able to play the way an experienced player would expect an elf to be played. Um, it's the flavor and background stuff that I really get to tweak and adjust. The last thing I need to put in here, medium. Elves get to move 30 feet, and I believe they're low light vision by default. Let's see. Yes. So it's kind of a hybrid, I guess, to answer your question. Again, anything that actually has to do with game mechanics, in my case, I'm importing. Anything that has to do with flavor, or especially as it applies to the world setting, then I'm then I'm free to kind of do whatever I want. Yes, Wizards of the Coast is definitely more stringent. When I first started thinking about this, my first thought was to actually make it a D&D environment, simply because there's a bigger market. Um, when I changed my mind, even before I fully got locked in, I was already wary, because having played a in a D&D 5e campaign, and building a cleric character, um, using the trickery domain. All right, we used Roll20 as our gaming system, and Roll20, of course, does import the 5e SRD. In 5e, the player's handbook defines, I think, 6 different domains that a cleric can follow, and which one you choose determines what bonus spells you get, and what gods you should be focusing on, and that sort of thing. And like I said, I took trickery, and it wasn't until I went to create my character sheet in Roll20 that I realized that when Wizards of the Coast released the SRD, they released the rules for what a domain means, but they only actually released one of the 6 domains that they defined. The other 5 are copyright protected. So I can't create my own trickery cleric in Cartyrion. Alright, the only cleric I can create in Cartyrion, if I was going to go 5e, was a light cleric, which is your typical pure healer. If I wanted to create any other types, I would have to not only create them, but basically completely reinvent them, so that I wasn't just putting a different cover on Wizards work. And that kind of thing is all through the Wizards of the Coast SRD. Where the player's handbook, it defines a thing. The player's handbook includes 7 or 8 variants, according to that definition, and then the SRD only includes one of the variants. All right, and you can't do the other 6 in your own. Obviously, if I was just playing and not trying to market anything, then I could do whatever I wanted. But um, I didn't have the free. I couldn't even. I couldn't build to the player's handbook. Whereas in Paizo's case, I can. In Paizo's case, literally, there's one chapter of the player's handbook, of the 600 plus pages of the player's handbook, that is not covered in the SRD, and that chapter is the chapter that defines the environment, the world setting Galarian, which includes the deities and the physical, the geography, and a bunch of NPCs and things. All the rest of it, all of the rest of the game mechanic, every aspect of it that they define, is fair game for inclusion in another game that of course uses the same, that it tacks on the open gaming license and does all that kind of good thing. So it actually became a very easy choice to use Pathfinder as a base. Um, it's a lot less work. So, all right, so I think I've got everything done. Eventually, I am going to have to put tags on these things, but interestingly enough, the tags and the traits are essentially the same thing. But I'll come back and I'll tag things later. I'm not worried about that right now. I will save this. That gives me my stat block, and in fact, I will right now jump over here and I will grab the link for that stat block, and then I will come back to the article I was working on. And before I do anything else, I will do that. I'm guessing my timer expired some time ago, right? Yes, I did. I really can't wait to have 2 monitors so I can see things like when my timers expire. How did people do in the sprint? I'm assuming you all watched and saw when time was up, so let's do a quick catch up in the chat. All right, so that was the existing setting. So yeah, in your case, I mean, if Ravnica, if it's a published setting, you need to be very, very careful about what you do as far as your own stuff, unless you're only doing this for your own games. Again, if you're doing it for your own games, the only other advice I might have is, especially like barring special occasions like summer camp, you probably want to make sure all of the articles that you write that involve copyrighted material stay private. All right, and that's because, and Dimmy and Janet have talked about this. If you're putting copyrighted, or copyright related material, even with attribution, if you don't have a license that lets you publish stuff, World Anvil Public essentially is publishing, whether you like it or not. And most of the licenses, it doesn't matter that you're not making money off it, you can't publish. This is also, they also included in that discussion fan fiction. I know we were talking about this last night in a couple of chats. Fan fiction is a dicey area for World Anvil because whereas some franchises encourage fan fiction, not all do, and the ones that don't tend to limit it to sites that they control. World Anvil is not such a site, so if you start writing Star Wars fan fiction, for example, Disney is going to come to Dimmy and say, you can't have that. And then Dimmy is going to come to you and say, we need to take that down, or at least make it private. Flower Wizards also makes you buy either physical or digital books, and digital books don't copy over between sites. Actually, that's not always true. Um, well, physical books certainly don't copy over. I mean, you have to manually do cut and paste there. This thing that you're seeing me cut and paste from, this is the Paizo PDF of the Player's Handbook, which I legitimately bought. In fact, if you look, you'll see that every page has a watermark on here that has my name on it. So, yeah, you send pictures of the book to yourself. Yeah, the only problem with that is the copy and paste doesn't work too well off pictures unless you run it through a character reader. Yeah, the only problem I have with the ties to Fantasy Grounds. You might want to, as far as Fantasy Grounds, look at Foundry VTT. Foundry VTT includes with the one-time $50, I think it is, to buy Foundry VTT. That includes pretty much, well, it includes the SRDs for every system that Foundry currently supports. So you don't have to, unlike Roll20, where you actually have to go in and buy the compendium for D&D, and then you have to buy the compendium for Pathfinder. All of that comes with Foundry. So if you do want to think of switching off of Fantasy Grounds, Foundry is the place to go. I will be going off of Roll20 and onto Foundry as soon as I have my new machine up and running. That's one of the things. The only reason I haven't done it yet is because I didn't see the point in dealing with downloads and you know, getting everything registered and all of that on this machine, only to have to do it all over again and deal with transferring a license and all that kind of crap. You know, for 2 weeks, it wasn't worth it. But take a serious look, DM, at Foundry. Yeah, and like I said, if it's your own game, I'm not sure what level you're subscribed at in World Anvil, but if it's your own game and you have one bunch of players, basically you set things to private. You tell them to. The other nice thing about Foundry, by the way, is it will incorporate. It'll literally pick up and grab articles from World Anvil. You can make World Anvil part of your compendium in Foundry VTT. And right from the Foundry dashboard, you can drag and drop World Anvil assets onto the table or to show your characters or whatever. All you really need to do, to make things, and in fact, to do that, I'm not even sure you need to deal with subscribers and subscription groups to do that. But at the very worst, you get your players to create free World Anvil accounts. And like I said, I don't even think you need to do that if you go through Foundry. But worst comes to worst, if you wanted your players to see your stuff in World Anvil, get them to take up free accounts, make them subscribe to, set them up as subscribers to your world, and put them in a subscription group, and then just turn everything private. And then you shouldn't have the publication problem that making things public would do. Let's see. Yeah, you want to play on World Anvil. The problem is you really can't play on World Anvil. I mean, you can DM something from World Anvil, but you don't have the virtual tabletop. And as far as I can tell you, as far as Dimmy and Janet are concerned, they never will. All right. The virtual tabletop that will be that comes with World Anvil is going to be Project Deos. All right, Project Deos is going to definitely find its way into it's going to basically be a lot of app killers. because you're going to have one project, one place where you can build your maps, integrate your maps into your world. With the World Anvil tie-in, you can do all the rest of the world building you need to do. All right, and with the Foundry VTT tie-in to Deos, you're going to have a virtual tabletop to play on. All right, where you can, where you can bring all of these other bits and pieces in together. That's going to be a different world for all this. Yeah, what you mean GM a game? Yeah, that's definitely something you can do. You can use the campaign stuff here. You can use it to track a campaign. Your players can build your character sheets here. You can build your adventure plots and use World Anvil assets to narrate, as the DM and walk through an adventure session. The thing you're missing though is the actual tabletop, which you don't always need. I mean, admittedly, you can, if your group is good enough with the theater of the mind kind of things, then you don't need the virtual tabletop. Depending on the rule set that you're playing with, you don't need the virtual tabletop. If you listening to Sable's channel last night, they're playing Pathfinder 2. Now, Pathfinder 2 is a very, or tries to be a very physical tabletop-oriented game. Where movements are defined. That you can do this much. You can move this far on a turn, and you can do this, and your attacks are based on your position relative to your opponents and all that kind of stuff. But they seem to do just fine doing it all in the mind, and you can. I mean, as long as as a DM, as long as you can kind of keep track of basic stuff, and as long as your players understand enough about the rules to be able to verbalize what they're doing. It's easy on a tabletop, for example, to say, okay, well, the first fighter moved up to attack orc number 1. When the second fighter's turn comes, he's going to move around so that he's flanking number 1. Well, it's easy to see that on a tabletop. It's also easy for the second guy to say, I'm going to move to flank. And okay, now the guy's flanked, and now that it applies penalties to his armor class. And you roll the dice and resolve the combat, so you can do it without a tabletop. If you're able to do that, then you can run a game out of World Anvil. I too am looking to do that. I'm still playing catch up on getting my first couple of adventures built into World Anvil, and I've been unfortunately kind of like bouncing around a lot, trying to decide what it is I need to get done first. Let's see. Your current group is hesitant to do anything on World Anvil because they aren't used to anything like that. Well, you see, the other beauty is they wouldn't technically. Well, you can even create. I mean, for you to have them, you can create their character sheets for them as NPCs, and this is the one thing that is a little interesting. You have to create them as NPCs if you're going to create them. Once they decide to join World Anvil, again, even with a free account, you can then assign the NPC over to them, and it becomes their character, and they can do whatever, they can then modify it and manage it, and it'll show up in your campaign stuff as a player character instead of an NPC. But even before you did that, I mean, you can set up the NPCs so that you know who they are and what they can do. And then, of course, you can set up your own real NPCs and your other monsters and that sort of thing. And you can define you can define all of the things that you need to have that you would have if you went out and bought a module. All right, that module is going to include, the stat blocks on all of the bad guys and stat blocks on the NPCs. And then it's also going to contain the narrative of the adventure itself, and that narrative is going to consist of stuff that you as the DM need to know and stuff that you as the DM need to tell the party. All right, well, that part you can build, all of it actually, you can build into World Anvil. All right, and essentially build a module right into World Anvil using some combination of the plot type templates are probably the best ones to do it, and they're the ones that are kind of designed to do that. Um, it does take a little customizing, but or at least custom use of the templates, but it can definitely be done. Have to, you can do that. Let's not ever forget that paper and pencil have been around a long time, and they're still very, very useful tools. So, uh, ooh, I was disconnected for a while. Am I back? That's not good. Did I just go away for a bit? Can anybody tell me? Yeah, we just need to request a real-time update for maps. Well, that would be nice too. Yeah. Um, yeah, tiny. Yeah, exactly. Edith. That's kind of what I was getting at, I guess. Uh, do you use maps to pin things in one place on Fantasy Grounds? All the story encounters, etc. is on your DM map. You don't actually play. All right. So, oh, okay. All right. Okay. How long was I gone? About a minute or so. The strange thing was that usually when I disappear, I know it's coming because other things freeze up first. That one was just um, OBS disconnecting, which tells me it was not necessarily my fault, but was courtesy of my internet service provider, who is also on the short list for replacements. Um, Not just my machine, but I will be switching providers and upgrading my internet service because between my streaming and two grown sons who live to game and a wife who works at home, we have definitely been taxing our bandwidth. So, yeah, Twitch being. I don't know if it was Twitch or. I don't think it was Twitch. I think it was the ISP because OBS disconnected. So either Twitch stopped receiving or I stopped communicating. Um, what I need to do right now is take a very, very brief bio break. And when I get back, I want to get back into this article a little bit, and we will do another sprint. So, bit of a lag on my chat as well. Yeah, again, that probably came from the from the disconnect, unless it was Twitch that glitched out. Um, so yeah, I'm not seeing any overloads. Everything else seems to be behaving very well. Let's just hope it keeps going that way. Like I said, I'm going to take a very, very quick break, pop you guys over to a pause screen. Um, I will be back in just a few minutes. And when I get back, we'll do a sprint. we're back. Alright, so let me get the timer up again. If we're lucky, we could even get 2 sprints in before the end of the session. But we'll start this one in 3, 2, 1, go. Trying to keep these articles similar. mentioned physical maturity for the dwarves. In traditions, okay. Let's see, what templates am I on right now? Again, this is, oh, pardon me. What templates am I on right now? Esong asks. Right now, this is my template. It's essentially the species template, but I've basically built a custom version of it that just pre-fills the various headers that you're seeing in here. And you know, gives me the framework, and it saves me the trouble of having to put in all of the BB code that I would otherwise need to do. When you and I were talking yesterday, again, I think this is the Grandmaster bonus that I can build. That I can basically do this once and not have to play the back and forth game from Notepad that I showed you. Okay, so this physical adulthood around the age of 20 is going to come in down as part of traditions. We'll get back to that. Alright, so I've got my vignette section done. And then I have to come down here toward start playing with the attitude towards others. That's probably all I need to say there. DM Stretch, one thing I don't like on WA is the save notification flashing up every few seconds. The autosave function is great. Yeah, to be honest, I don't think I even notice it. But that's just me when I'm focusing on a section. The only thing I'm really seeing is the small block of text that I'm working on. But personally, it wouldn't bother me, so maybe that's why I'm not noticing it too. Every time it flashes, you think you've made progress. Well, you know what? You could do the same thing on you'll put a sticky note up on your monitor over where the save button is, over where the save thing flashes. There's really not much else going on up here in that section of, of your screen, you could probably just hang a sticky note off the off your monitor frame. Okay, we took care of that. How's our timer doing? Time is up again. How about that? I really need to pay more attention to clocks. Okay, how did people do in the sprint? Is anybody sprinting, or is it just me sprinting? Because if it's just me sprinting, I won't bother with the timer. I'll just do chunks of work and then stop and talk. No sprints here. Oh, Songbird taking the morning off, huh? So like I said, if there's nobody sprinting, I mean, you're welcome to do it, but I'll just kind of freeform this and keep going. Attitudes towards other folk. And this is part of it. Your extreme longevity. Makes you very wary. Know that barring disaster, you will live long enough to bury them and their children and their children's children. Since you invest so much of yourself in a friendship, true friendship, this will often you know what, I don't want to get into that here. I'll get into that in the what others think of you section. That's basically what I need to say here. Where did the what others think of you section go? Did that get lost again? Oh no, there it is. Attitude of the folk toward you. Most. To be caring. that's the part I wanted to make sure I got in there. I'll get back to the rest of it later. This is the other. Actually, this is going to probably go up here. This way, the opportunity and the time. That. Again, we've covered all of that. And we're up to the attitudes of the folk toward me. How we doing here in the chat? Oh, Mikara Chandra, sorry to hear that. Esong hasn't been feeling good the last 3 days. How long has it been since you visited your family or Scribe's family? Esong, I assume you did that math and in today's COVID world, that's the kind of math everybody has to do, I think. Hopefully that's not what you're feeling, you know, although if it is, hopefully it's the mild form. DM is going to shoot off for a while. Catch us later. Have a good time, DM, if you haven't left already. You got meds and got the call in sick, so it will be a peaceful recovery. Well, you know what? Actually, don't think of it as a negative, as not having time to write. Think of it as a positive, having time to recharge. It's good to take a day or two off. Siobhan, you might benefit from this too once in a while. Take a day off. Don't write, especially if you're slowing down or you think you're running into some sort of blockades. Take a day off to step back, do something else. You'd be amazed how fresh you feel when you come back to it, and you'll be able to catch up. So how are we doing here? Who was that? Oh yes, that's right. We can either raid Toblin or we can raid Kahuna. I think we're going to raid Kahuna because I've never raided Kahuna before. That'll be in a couple minutes. Let's see if I can get anything else done here. Is there a gender-neutral term for marksman? I could go for marksperson, but that just seems contrived. Or is marksman acceptable? What does the chat say? Covered that. Dead shot, crack shot. Yeah, those would be safe. You know what? Let's go with those. Let's go with deadly accurate shot. Naming styles I'm leaving till later. Pretty much across the board. So that takes care of that section. Let's see what this looks like so far. And actually it looks like we're going to kind of wrap it up here. So let's see how far we got. Oh, here we go. Now it's starting to slow down. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Here it comes. The elves. I need to put a few extra breaks, I think, in here, or just clean up those breaks. I still have to put an origin section in there. Origins and religious beliefs are kind of related, so those will go in easily enough. And I have to make some decisions on naming styles for all of my races, which I haven't completely made yet, so that'll be for another day. Alright, it looks like it's just about time to wrap up. Is there anything else anybody has any questions on what you saw here today, or what you might do? Oh, the other thing I am going to do is I am going to play with the CSS for this to make it look a little more like the other things on my sheet. Although I don't know that I want it to look exactly like the sidebar. I think for the character stats, although I might use a similar style, I'll probably use a different background and possibly even a different text color instead of the same dark red that I'm using for all of my headers. Just to make it pop out that it's actually game rule stuff and not narrative stuff. So that's something I'll be playing with again over time. The beauty of that is I can wait, I can get them all done, and once I decide to actually do the CSS work in one fell swoop, I'll get it, it'll magically clean up all of my different ones. I have to do, like I said, I've started dwarves, I've now started elves. That leaves gnomes, goblins, halflings, and humans. Humans are an interesting one because humans also includes elks and half-orcs. Half-elves rather, and half-orcs. And I keep going back and forth as to whether or not I want to continue to treat them as heritages of human, or if I want to actually call them their own race. The downside to calling them their own race is, mechanically I can do it either way, but the downside to calling them their own race would be first of all having to come up with a few other choices for heritages for humans without necessarily getting into the nationalities, although I could possibly do that. But I would also then have to come up with a whole class of heritages for half-elves and for half-orcs. So I may just leave them the way they are and go from there, but that's something that's open to suggestion as well. Alright, not seeing anything else pop up in the chat, and it being a little after 12. Here's what we're going to do. You know what? I'm going to leave this up to the chat, and I'll tell you why. Kahuna right now will be running what he's calling one of his silent streams. If you weren't on last night or yesterday to hear, he has set up his broadcasting room or office or whatever. His wife is a teacher, and she is teaching from home, again because of COVID. So what he's actually done is he set up a green screen in the middle of the room. He's on one side with his desk, and his wife is on the other side. And during school hours, she's teaching pretty much the whole time. And during those hours, so that he doesn't disturb or distract her, he's broadcasting. He's twitching, streaming, but he's keeping his mic shut off. He has said though that he will basically treat the chat as if it were the mic. He'll just be answering in chat instead of speaking answers back to you. So anybody that wants to actually talk to him, he's not going to be able to read anything for you. But anybody that has any questions for him or just wants to stop in and say hi, he's going to just basically leave his streams up all day while he's working and come and go. If he has to take a break, he will. But so anyway, his stream will be a silent stream, or I can run us over to Toblin, and I'm sure he's still working on his CD10 game. So I'm open to recommendations. Going once. Going twice. Nobody cares. Either nobody cares or nobody's hearing me right now. I'm assuming it's the former. In that case, I'm going to set up a raid to Kahuna. At the very least, as I said, we can all go say hi. And if you don't want to stay there, that's your choice. So thank you all for coming. Hope this was helpful. I might, for the sake of keeping things simple and straightforward, I'm probably going to continue this work on Thursday instead of swinging over into the adventure-related stuff, and that's only because the adventure-related stuff tends to require me using assets on my machine that have proven to be a little more challenging resource-wise, and I'm still going to be on the old machine at least Saturday. So today everything behaved, except for that one little 1 minute glitch, everything behaved beautifully. I'm going to hope I can get through another day or two of streaming that way until my new box is up and running. And until then, yeah, I'm sure I bet my music just ran out, didn't it? That was a 2 hour and 9 minute thing, and that's just about done now. So, and that's okay because it's time for us to jump over anyway. Raid. And let me just make sure I get the spelling right. It's just Kahuna the Elder. No underscores. And I'll let you pick your own raid call today, folks. Have a good time. And I'm sure I'll be talking to a few of you in chat on other streams. Until Thursday, have a good one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.